Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today let's go over a premium question in the hard category that I just solved on my own. So I'm super happy about this and I'm extremely glad that I was able to come up with my own solution to this question without any assistance. So let's go over it and let me show you how I did it. This is question 2254, design video sharing platform. So basically this is a design question, and as you can see, you have 7 different methods to implement, and basically you have all these different specifications. So you can upload a video, and you have this video ID that you need to track starting from 0. So, and then you want to return the number of views, likes, and dislikes, and then this is just a combination of these two, and then a watch. So let's just go step by step, and let's just create likes, dislikes to track how many likes and dislikes for that particular video ID. And then also, let's just call this self.d is going to just be the main dictionary to keep track of the video ID and the video. So yeah, so now let's go ahead and basically we need to remove as well. That's also really important. So self.removed. And let's make this a sorted set, because when we remove something, an important part of this question is we have to find the video ID needs to be the smallest number that is not in this removed set. Okay, and starting from 0, so it can't be negative. So that's an important part. And other than that, let's go ahead and say, so for this upload part, that's really important, because we're just going to go ahead and find, actually, let's just go ahead and say self.big is 0, because what we're going to do, well, before we get there, let's go ahead and let me show you the naive way of doing it, and then let me show you the optimization that I came up with to actually complete the question. So, okay, so for uploading, let's just say self.d video is vid is equal to video, and then just return self.vid. So self.vid starts at 0, and basically we're just going to go from 0 to, let's say, so if self.removed, then we're just going to go from this to biggest plus 2, because we're going to look at all the things. Let's say we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and self.removed has 2 and 6. We're going to be looking at everything from 0 to 6 to see which one is not. So if I is not in self.removed, then self.video is equal to I, and then we can just break this loop. And yeah. Okay, so in terms of removing, let's say if video ID is in our dictionary, then we're just going to delete self.d video ID, and we're just going to discard the video ID, because removed means that it's used already. So probably self.used is a better variable name. So let's call this self.used, used, and used. Cool. So for watching, if video ID is not in self.d, then just return -1. Otherwise, let's call this the value is just going to be self.d video ID, and we want to return value start minute to end minute plus 1. So those are just like the boundaries. We're getting a substring. And then for this, if video ID is in self.d, then self.likes of video ID plus equals to 1. Same here, because this is going to keep track right here whether it's removed or not, right? Because self.d, this is just going to be the single source of truth. So here, if video ID is in self.d, again, self.dislikes video ID, increment by 1. And then here, if video ID in self.d, you're seeing a pretty obvious pattern here, right? We just have to check if the video ID is in self.d or not. And because, as I said, that's the way I'm representing the single source of truth as to whether we're tracking the video or we're not tracking the video, right? Because this is a video sharing platform with removal functionality. Anyways, so here, if this is true, then we can just return self.likes of video ID, and then self.dislikes video ID. So again, I'm just following this strictly by what it's saying. Otherwise, return -1, and then for get views, if video ID is in self.d, return self.views video ID. Otherwise, return -1, and that's another dictionary that I need. Views default dict integer. So now that we have views, we can say, as long as, well, let's go ahead and run this first. Video ID. So, okay, so not correct because we don't have self.views implemented. So every time we watch, we're just going to self.views video ID increment by 1. Okay, so let's go ahead and submit this just to see how many test cases we're passing. We're not only passing about half of them. Okay, so what are we getting wrong now? So if we're uploading self.used, we definitely need to add the self.vid because we can't use that later. Biggest is max or self.used -1 plus 1. Okay, cool. So nice. So everything has been implemented based on their specification here. Okay, so now that we've gone one by one, I'm going to show you the way I came up with to basically optimize this because this is a bit too slow. We're looping through the whole thing. And yeah, so let's go ahead and declare a variable called self.big. And what you're going to notice is that based on this, for example, once we have 2, the biggest one, we're going to set it to 2 minus 1 because 1 is the one that's not used, and that's going to be smaller than the one that is used. And then we're going to only set it to 1 if it's smaller than whatever the historical amount was, assuming that the current number is not equal to the number we're using. So a little bit confusing, but basically what that means is self.big is just going to be self.video plus 1, because if we're using 2, so if we're using 2, I think I got the explanation backwards, but what that means is we're going to set it to 3 because this is already used. Otherwise, if we get rid of 2, we're going to set it to whatever the thing we're removing is, if that makes sense. Okay, so here, if we're deleting, then we can just set self.big. This is when we want to minimize with the video ID because that's what we're removing, right? And then instead of doing all this, we can just say self.vid is equal to self.big. And that just keeps track of exactly what's going on in terms of the smallest element. So you can see we have an edge case here. And so let's go ahead and submit this. Okay, so something wrong here, because we're using minimum is already valid here. And so we're not setting it to vid. I think it's supposed to be video because video is the actual thing being used. No, sorry, self.vid. So video is the string. So Okay, so in that case, so let's try to walk through this again. Let's say we're using 2. Well, the biggest thing, the smallest number that's not being used is still 0. So maybe we can set it to -1 instead. No. Definitely not the thing that's being used. Because we're adding, and then we're discarding here. So self.big. Let's think about this again. So vid. Should it be self.big instead? No. Because the video we're going to return is still the same thing. Let's go ahead and print self.used. And just to sort of see where we are. .vid. So, okay, so notice here. So the problem was that we have to set it to self.big. So the self.used -1 + 1, right? Because it's sort of the biggest one. Yeah. Okay, cool. So yeah, that's what I meant to say. So if we have 0 to 6 and then we have 2, 6, basically it's like almost like a binary search. Every time we have a number, the biggest one, let's say worst case the number is 7. So otherwise, if the video ID 2 is being removed, then we're just going to set it back to 2. Because if we're here, if this is a bad one and we don't know about 5 or anything like that, we can say the soonest answer that it has to be is 7, right? If we're using 7, then the soonest number, the best solution into the smallest number that we haven't used would have to be 8, which is just +1, right? So I hope that makes sense. And let's go ahead and run this again. Submit it. Okay, and one more edge case. Okay. So, yeah. So this upload function is still a bit confusing. Let's print self.used again. And then, what is self.big though? Could it possibly be that? Nope. .used self.vid. So this is how I debug, right? Simple print statements. And so if we're discarding it, then yeah, we're trying to minimize that. Could it possibly be self.vid +1? Because self.big is no. So okay, so this is 1. If we're discarding it, is there something that I missed? Let's try this the other way again. So for I in range up to self.use -1 plus 2, if I is not in self.used, then self.vid equals I, break it. No. Interesting. Okay. Maybe we want to return self.vid -1. Nope. Yeah, this is a nasty edge case that took me like a good 45 minutes by myself to figure this out. So it was not easy, but I did do it completely on my own. So I'm determined to show you guys how I did it and reproduce that on camera here for you guys. So let's keep going. So self.used, self.vid. Okay. We don't need self.big though. Don't understand why that's there, but yeah, either way, that's fine. This one last edge case though. It's nasty. Okay, so, well, the whole reason we had self.big is just to say self.big is equal to self.vid plus 1, and then self.vid is equal to self.big. But that's not correct. .vid we're so close here. Okay. Use -1 plus 1. Yeah, it's supposed to be self.vid plus 1 because that's the one we're using. Why does it work if it's here? Oh, because that's already used in this case. Let's print self.used. Self.big and self.used. Question is why this is not correct. Oh, self.big. What if we did this? That's obviously worse. Let's print video ID remove. So removing 0. Let's print self.big. Yeah, so at the very least we can have that. Huh. Yeah, that's weird. So 1's supposed to be 0 though. So 1 and 0. Yeah, I can see why it's 0 because self.big maybe is -1, perhaps? Or we can just say if is a nasty edge case. One is supposed to be 0 though. What the heck? Yeah, if we're removing 0, then it's supposed to be 0. Yeah, that's what it is. Oh, self.big. Yeah, but the problem is if we're using video ID, let's just say if self.use -1 -1 is not in self.used, then self.big equals self.use -1 -1. Otherwise, oh, let's do this. This is annoying. Why are we not getting rid of the 0? Self.video ID, self.big. Maybe we don't need to keep self.big at all. That doesn't make a difference. If we're looking at the minimum dot big, but it can't be 0. Let's just do this again. Self.use -1 +1. So or we always do this. Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah, that has nothing to do with self.used. I don't know why I had that there the whole time and I didn't even notice that. Yeah, it has nothing to do with self.used because used is just whatever it is, and then we're just tracking the best case as I explained, like this, and then the worst case like this, with the minimum right there. Okay, anyways, let's run this again, submit it, and there you go. Passes all test cases. So again, I'm super happy that I was able to come up with my own solution to this question without any help and solve it completely on my own. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more.